Hi, you're watching 20 Questions with David. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm David King and I'm from Singapore. Right, I'm really glad to be here and to be interviewed to tell you a bit about what I went through in my life.
Yeah, let's get into it. Can you start off with
Yeah.
a little bit of a background by saying where you grew up and what your early years were like?
Okay. Well, I in Singapore, as I grew up, of course, I have my own different set of challenges. I'm glad to share in this world, right? Yes, when I was young, I didn't had a lot of connections or really strong communication with my family. So the only thing that we usually do is, you know, when we have time, it's always in front of a TV. So we don't have that communication. So my early years was kind of like quite cold. I don't really have someone to really open up and share with. Studies have shown, that there is a high correlation between people who don't have family lunch or dinner and to juvenile delinquency. So the less you have family lunch and dinner, the chances of you ending up in prison or having to do crime is higher. And that's one of the things that I didn't have any family lunch or dinner with my family. So growing up in the early years, I also, when I was young, I used to be beaten up by my dad quite often. Use belt rotan, or what we call rotan is a cane, made of like or rattan cane, they will call it. So many things as well. There was also once my dad wanted to kill me, wanted a knife and just kill me. Of course, probably he was either drunk or he was just pissed. I'm not saying I'm sane lah. When I was young, probably I'm mischievous and all, but I grew up in this kind of culture at home, and eventually, as I grow older, I started to have rebellion against my parents. All these small, petty things that eventually turned to become something bigger. There was a time when I was 15 that I took a big, I think they call it we call it parang, but it calling something like a machete. It's a long knife, and I took it to kill my own dad, and he ran out of the house. So it could have been a point of time that I would have just been hanged to death, for killing my own dad. But it didn't turn out to that point. So it was quite a nasty childhood that I had when I was young. Yeah, that was a bit of my early years. Of course, eventually I started to join gangs and things like that when I was about 15. Yeah.
Did you ever resolve things with your dad?
Yes, resolve things. Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh, like,
like fixing, resolve sort of thing.
yeah, I think, I haven't get to share a bit more about what happened, but I can. So what happened,
Yeah.
eventually I went to jail for crimes. If you want to know more, I will tell you a bit more later. But when I was inside, of course, I started to have my values and beliefs sorted out. You see, one of the things that we all grow up is values and beliefs, that eventually are exposed to us and it comes into our subconscious mind. So, my younger days values were revenge, or fight, to resolve a problem, or the kind of mindset. So eventually when I go into prison, one of the big thing that happened was I started to become more involved in the chapel. I started to find you know Christianity and the Lord, and one of the thing is that I started to learn about forgiveness, about love, and it was slowly embedding into me um and I forgive my dad for what he have done, and when I came out, I make amends, and I was quite close to him, when I came out from prison. And he died of cancer, but even through the last moments, he knows that things are reconciled between us. Yeah.
When did you first become involved in crime and how did it start?
Yeah, so I started to join gangs when I was in 15. Eventually, I was in a series of gangs, not just one. No, we had a lot of complications, so different territories and things like that. And then, and I was young, I just follow my friends. Then we only had small scuffles, and small scuffles started to turn bloody and started to become more nasty. To the point of time, there was once my gang friends, they went down and in an MRT station. So MRT is like the train station or the railway station. So my gang friends went down and then they stabbed the guy 11 times with daggers and went right into his spinal cord. So eventually he lost his legs. He was paralyzed waist down. And then they didn't give a chance. It was an eye for an eye, you know. So of course, there's a famous saying by Mama Gandhi, you know, say an eye for an eye makes the whole world go blind. So they take one eye, I take one eye. They take one eye, I take one eye. So it was a whole revenge thing. And then eventually we were caught off guard. And of course, you can go to YouTube, you can type my name, you will see some of my videos done by the national media that describes what happened during the crime scene and things like that. So eventually we were caught off guard by 3 or 4 gangs who came with big knives and a lot of other weapons. Thank God I managed to escape. So my friends couldn't, and one of them was murdered on the streets. We were all 19 years old, right? So I even have a tattoo of his name in memory of him, right? So he was murdered right in front of where we are. And, you know, it was quite a painful moment, you know. Of course, being young, my values all over the place. The only thing I could think of is revenge and, you know, an eye for an eye. So I eventually took revenge, did a lot of cases, hurting them. And eventually I was on the run by the police and got caught. No, I surrendered myself, you know, and yeah, then I went in for about 8 years with 18 strokes of the cane. Singapore, they have cane. I'm not sure in other parts of the world, but caning is one of the scariest thing in Singapore, you know, besides hanging on the rope to death, right? So that is the main way to, you know, for death penalty. So yeah, I was caned, you know, 18 strokes of the cane. And cane in Singapore, the skin will just fly, you know. Once the whip come, you know, the blood will just, you know, come out, and it's totally a bloody, as you can say, you know, we'll be naked while we are being whipped. So yeah, 18 strokes of the cane in 8 years. I was about 18 years old, and then eventually I came out about 27. But during the whole point of time, I think the big thing that happened was my wake up call, and I started to think about change. And I'm not sure if there is any of this question that is in your 20 questions, so I don't need to, I can stop here and let you continue in your questions.
No, you're all right. You keep going. It's just...
Oh, okay. So I was in prison. I think that was my turning point, the long term where I was in. And yeah, I thought one of the big ways to change is to pick up education. When I was outside, I didn't do well. I didn't study enough. I eventually dropped out, but not because I was dumb, you know, I was stupid, but it's more of like, you know, I was just didn't have the right mindset to study, didn't believe in myself. But when I was inside, I see what my mom went through, what are the sufferings my family went through when I'm, you know, inside. They get, I mean, people see them, they get humiliated, and it's quite sad. So the only way to bring back pride to them, and also in a way to make amends to my own life, is to study. So I applied for studying in prison. Okay, and I was about you know, even though I was about 20, so it was like in Singapore we call it N levels, O levels, A levels. So they basically like maybe junior college or college. I don't know what they call it over there. So I did all my about 4 years of studies in prison itself. I was a top student, and then eventually the time I was about to release, I got accepted to a very good university in Singapore called SMU, Singapore Management University. So they came to prison. They interviewed me, gave me a scholarship, knowing my grades were good. And so, yeah, I get a chance to go out and study in the school. I mean, it was quite chaos because going out to a university after 8 years in prison, you know, it's really very, very tough. but I managed to overcome. And I did my majors in psychology and human resources, double majors in SMU.
Wow.
And eventually I started my business in called Ministry of Empowerment, MOE, and to help other young kids not to go through what I went through. And mainly working with all the schools in Singapore, doing at-risk work. And then I also went on to study and did my MBA, my master's in business. Even though it was distance learning, it was attached to UK, a University of Chester. So I actually went down to University of Chester to get my the graduation day. I went down all the way to Chester to graduate from there from my MBA as well. Yeah, of course I did other studies like going to US and did my NLP training. So I become a life trainer, a trainer in NLP as well, neuro linguistic programming. Yeah.
So when you got the opportunity to take on education, is that what you do now? Sorry, you psychologist now?
Yeah, I won't call it psychologist, but yes, to a level, I will probably call myself a life coach, and help people in the way, families, kids and adults, mainly in coaching them to a better, positive life. Yeah.
Yeah. Was there anything you had to do to be initiated into a gang?
Frankly, no. It's quite easy to join a gang. In the past, yes, before my time, probably maybe in the 80s, you might need to probably, take a slash of your blood, and maybe, slash with them, the blood to blood. But it kind of like died down. It didn't have it in the 90s or so. So it was quite easy. Recruit, just join the gang. All they need is numbers, so they just get as many numbers as they can to their side. Yeah, there wasn't any initiation. Yeah.
What was the name of the gang?
Name of the gang? Okay, I'm not sure. Okay, I can't tell the name of. I don't know whether it's appropriate to say the name of the gang on over here. Well, because we still have our secret society branches over here, they might be watching. But I do have my own story, my book. It's also Amazon as well. Of course, I that's a soft copy lah, of my life story, and all the gang names are inside there. Yeah. So for now, I probably will not tell the gang names because of certain protocols here. Yeah.
Are they still operating?
Yes, they do operate. Although nowadays is different from the 90s gangs, they still exist. Of course, it's so much different, lesser violent fights. And now, teenagers are more into like cybercrime and different, it's a different era. So probably lesser violence, I would say. Yeah. But it still exists.
You've said previously that you would never leave the house without a weapon. What kind of weapons would you take?
Yeah, I used to bring out a knuckle dusters, which is banned in Singapore at that point of time. And then daggers, and a large axe. It's like quite my size of a hand. I used to carry a large axe around as well. Yeah.
What was the logic behind taking a big axe?
Well, when you're young, you are dumb. You just, and last time in our time, 1990s, there was no smartphone. So you kind of like, we are more daring to do these kind of things. Nowadays with smartphone, you never know who's filming you around you. So people will not dare to carry such big weapons in the present days. Last time there wasn't. So that's why we were more dumb to do these. Yeah.
Most people think of Singapore as being one of the world's safest countries. How much of a criminal underbelly does the country have?
How much? What again? The last
how
part?
much how much criminal activity is still going on?
Okay, criminal activity, like I said, it has been shifted from physical to more cyber. So crimes do exist, and they're much more advanced, much more sophisticated than what we have. However, I think Singapore still is under control, compared to many countries. It's still a tiny nation. We have 5 million people, so it's comparatively, we do not have a lot of cases. that has happened with that recently. But of course, I think one of the latest one I would say is which took the nation by surprise was a young boy who was about 16 years old. I think he used a weapon. I don't know. I forgot what the weapon was, to kill a 13-year-old boy in the same school, and that was it took the whole nation by surprise. It just happened very recently as well. Yeah, and he used the X, if I'm not wrong. Yes, he used an
Jesus.
X. Yeah. So that's the one and biggest thing that we happen. It's not like every now and then. Yeah. We, yeah.
That wasn't gang related though, was it?
So right now, he's still under investigation. No one knows what happened, why he did it. I mean, some people say it's because of his depression, his issues with his, studies, can't cope, things like that. So, and they are not related, so they don't even know each other. So there's no gang involved. So it's mainly caused based on depression. And I think Singapore has this big issue with depression a lot because of, how parents challenge the kids to study and get good grades. And a lot of kids are going into mental breakdown. One part Singapore is trying to, help hopefully that thing that went through with him will wake up Singapore to take care more of the young youth as well and help them in their mental challenges or issues as well. Yeah.
Yeah. What was it like entering the prison system for the first time, especially being so young?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I was just waiting for the moment to cry when nobody is around me. I was so scared. I really have a lot of emotions. Fear is one of the biggest, what's going to happen to me. When I first stepped into the prison, I think initially we will be brought into a bus from the court to the prison remand because we are not sentenced yet. So we will be in the remand. And so while we go to the place, we are in this bus and we call it the Black Maria. It's like a very famous bus name that we used to call it. So we are crammed and we go there. And then eventually when we go there, the first thing they will do is to, get us to be naked, to the point of time, all of us in a big yard. So there's about 50 to 80 of us all in a big yard, all facing the wall. And we have to strip naked, show our feet, show our mouth. And we even have to open our butthole to show them, because Singapore, there are many people who smuggle things inside through butthole. I think it might be the same for other countries as well, but so they will make sure they will see there's no contraband, no cigarettes or anything that you try to smuggle in. And of course, I was shocked, to see, hey, not just I have to be naked, I have to open up my butthole and show it to them, while they take a torchlight and flash it on it. So it's quite humiliating at the beginning, right? So it's also a point of time that you have to strip naked whenever they ask you to a point, and of course you will have things like the dog will come and sniff you to see whether you have any drugs on you. You have to listen to them. And in the past it was different, you get smacked. For anything that you do wrong, they can just slap you whenever they want. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So it's quite a scary experience. Yeah.
What's the gang situation like in the Singaporean prisons?
Um, Now I can't speak for the now thing, but in my time, 90s in the year 2000s, when I was sentenced, I was sent to a prison called Tanah Merah prison, and it's kind of a maximum security prison, and a lot of gangsters are sent there as well. So we did had a lot of riots, especially the big gangs, and we also have our own territory inside. And there was a lot of gang. The officers know that a lot of gangs involved. Sometimes even the officers will allow us to meet each other, to have a settlement talk, rather than having us to keep fighting, rioting, and causing problems for everyone. Yeah, so it was quite notorious, but not in every prison, but selected prisons, they have this kind of gangster environment. Yeah.
Singapore is a very multicultural country. Was there much racism or ethnic tension in prison?
Racism, in prison, I think there's much less racism than outside of prison in Singapore. In Singapore, sometimes you have no choice. You have to like live with it, you know. Of course, when you are choosing, let's say they put you into a mix. I've been in okay, mainly there are 3 or 4 races in Singapore. So Malay, Chinese, Indians, and Caucasians. Okay, so these are the 4 mains one. Of course, we don't have a lot of Caucasians in Singapore prisons, very few. And the main one, Singapore, is have Chinese, Malay, Indian. So if for Indian to go into a Malay cell or Chinese cell, I'm okay with it. I've been in a lot of cells. We have a good relationship, right? But mostly they will still prefer to have people with their same races. It's kind of easier for communication, but it doesn't. I don't see any racial issues or racial tensions happening in the prisons, because also mostly the gangs, if you are in a gang, you have Malays, Chinese, Indians, all in a gang. So the most important is my gang, whoever is, I don't care, but we are all the same gang. So I'll take care of you. Yeah.
What was your cellmates like then? Were they all affiliated?
Uh, Firstly, not. Firstly, of course, when you just join in, nobody knows you. But once you get into a established prison where you're going to be there permanently, yes, then usually we can try to talk to the officers to allow us to be in the same room, but we won't tell them because we are the same gang lah. You know, we will just tell them that we know each other, or we will prefer to be with each other. So most of the time they will adjust to that.
Is there much violence in Singaporean prisons? And did you either witness or get involved?
Violence, yes. In the past, there was a lot of violence. I think there's still violence here and there. It's much control right now. And but there is, because as long as there are gangs, there will be violence in prisons lah. I think the more bigger violence happens in the young prison. So we have in prison in Singapore, we have this thing called RTC, Reformative Training Centers. So those who just turned 18 or who are very young offenders, they are all thrown into this prison. So being young and warm-blooded, and they all are full of ego, so there will be a lot of bullying, a lot of fights, a lot of even I remember one time that they went into a chapel where they were singing gospel songs, and then people start taking the guitar and just throw at each other and fight in the chapel itself. These are stories that I've heard, and yeah, it is much more prominent in the younger prisons. Yeah.
You were jailed for another attack with a weapon after you got out of prison. Can you say a little bit about that?
Yes, I was jailed for, actually I have more than one case. I was sentenced for 6 rioting cases so stabbing, and I mean some of them were really quite painful to recollect. Of course, I mean I've been surrounded with 50 people, and 2 of us went down to slash the hitman, and things like that as well. So these are part of the things that happen in my life. Of course, sadly, my 6 writing cases, all of them were told by the one who told the police that I did it were my own gang friends. So it was quite sad because there's no real loyalty in the gangs. It's all, eventually everybody want to save their own self. Yeah, that's one big thing that I learned.
You also got 18 strokes of the cane for that offense. What was that like?
18 strokes of the cane. Yeah, it was really gory lah. Like I had to, before I get cane, they make me see another person getting cane in front of me. So the guy will be naked and they will whip out in front of me, and so I think usually when they are caning, right, these guys who are macho, who are so big size, they are paid for every single stroke. Okay, so I think they gave about 4 strokes. Then they will switch with another person who have so much energy and will continue the caning. So it is a very painful experience, and probably for 1 week you can't really sit, you can't really, sleep properly. So these are the painful things lah that you go through. And as a gangster, you when you are getting caned, you cannot really shout. Okay, you have to endure. You have to show that you can take it in. So if you shout and call for help or scream, they will mock you in prison. Yeah, that's one of the things.
So what made you eventually decide to leave crime, and how did your old gang members react to that?
Okay, firstly, I tried to, after inside when I started to became a Christian and started to change my values and my life, from going through the Bible, my friends were first like, thinking what is happening to me, and they see transformation. So I did told them, hey, I want to quit my gang, and they said, well, you joined the gang when you were outside of prison, so it's best that you do it outside of prison. Okay, so in it, so yes, so I can't really quit when I was in prison, but when I was there, my lifestyle changed, my transformation, that got them to start thinking that this guy is really serious about change, um and then eventually they started to give me, not try to involve me in the bad things they tried to do in prison. And it was point of time that they really realized my transformation was real. And there was point of time, there was one of my hitmen who was in prison with me. He came to me and said to me, hey, I'm really surprised that you have changed a lot, and God is working in your life, and he asked me, can I join you to chapel? And he started to join chapel as well, and he started to think about change by looking at my life. Yeah.
So you guys had hitmen.
Yes, we have hitmen, we have senior hitmen, we have junior hitmen and things like that as well. Yeah.
How does that work? Like a junior to senior, what's the difference?
Of course, it's always rank, right? The highest the rank will have the final say of everything, and they will have the connections and things like that. The junior ones take care of the what we call the boys lah, we take care of the boys, and then of course the senior one will focus on money or different things, or work with adults, things like that. Yeah.
And are you happy now?
Of course, I'm happy. I mean, I have no regrets. In fact, I think you'll be more sad if I'm still if I didn't go to prison. Probably I could have been killed in a gang fight. But going to prison, finding God, finding my life back, going and studying, everything has been a very powerful thing. I mean, 9 out of 10 people probably will not turn out like me. What I went through and what are my changes. I'm established now. I get a lot of international awards. I even got a Duke of Edinburgh awards in UK as well. So there were a lot of support that came to me. I have a family. I have 2 beautiful kids, and I have a good business helping young people and their families. So everything's good, and I'm happy, and I have no regrets. I even have a time where I saw some of those who we had a gang fight with, and who you know, were about to like very angrily, lavish on me and kind of kill me if they could. But when they saw me come out of prison, and now I'm being featured on news, on radio, on TV in Singapore, and getting awards, and they found out all about it, and they told me that they are so proud of who I am, you know. And a lot of gangsters also found, a lot of youngsters and gangsters also found hope. Hey, if David can really give up everything and become successful, there is someone like that. I don't have to live in this, mud hole of gangs and just ruin my life. I can come out of it. Yeah, give them some hope. Yeah.
Finally, what advice would you give to others who are involved in the gang lifestyle and considering leaving it behind?
Yeah, I think one of the things that happened many years ago, which I heard a story that this guy who quit his gang, but he used to still live in the same neighborhood. And one day the rival gangs came down and killed him right in the coffee shop in front of everyone. Even though he has quit the gang, he's still in the neighborhood, and people will always assume that he's still part of them. So you have to come clean. It has to be really quite radical. When I came out of prison, I had no influence with any of my old friends. It was clean slate. It was start from zero, So it's tough because you need to find a new set of friends again. You have to find your footing in every part of your life. But that clean slate eventually got easier and easier, rather than you say, okay, I'll quit my gang, but I'll stay hang out with them. I think you are just fooling yourself, because you might get into trouble again. So if you can dare to take a radical step in really being extreme, like wiping out everything from your past, and moving forward, it will be much more easier. Yeah.
Thank you, David, so much. Can you tell people where they can find your book and yourself online?
Yeah, my books, I have it called, it's called I can tell you. Okay, so it's one of my book is called From Adversity to University. Just give me 1 second. I show you my book cover.
The link will also be down below, as will mine, and on Twitter at Mr. King Reardon. You'll find all my links down below, especially for my book, The Recluse on Amazon. Yeah.
Okay, so I have books. They are in Amazon as well. These are books that I've written from adversity to university. How do I put it? Okay, from adversity to university, and this is one of my latest book, which I wrote during the COVID times. It's called Neurohack. So I work a lot with the subconscious mind, things like that as well. I also have my own channel, David King. You can just find David King. You can see my all the gang stories and things like that over there. It's helpful for you to know more about what I went through. Of course, I run my company called Ministry of Empowerment. But mainly, YouTube is one of the best ways, where I can continue to help people in every way. It's just what is happening over here as what they are trying to do as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I hope that we get you back on to have a chat with you again. Thank you so much. And for yourself, like, subscribe, hit the bell to stay up to date. And if you're going to drop a comment, before you do, take a second and just think about what you're going to say. It goes a long way. Thank you so much. David, I shall see you soon.
Yeah. Thank you.